Honored to have our special guest, Her Grace Malati. Anyone not familiar with Malati Devi Dasi? Of course, she's a legend here in ISKCON and throughout the three worlds as a wonderful servant of Srila Prabhupada. We're actually just singing your praises at a dinner gathering we had at Minon's because we were talking about how much the TOVP in Mayapur has changed. And we were reminiscing about how you used to pioneer when it was basically just a desert, right, with no water. You're carrying your baby on your back, Saraswati on your back to the river to get water and back, risking your life. It's very inspiring. So we're very honored to always have you, along with your guests from New Vrindavan and our very special guests, the Chicago migrants, right? Their graces, Nityananda Pran and Mataji, I'm sorry. Hemangi Devi Dasi, Chicago. Please give them a round of applause. Welcome. They've been hiding out in Cleveland, patiently waiting to return to their service to Guru and Guranga, and we're very, very pleased to have them here with us today, along as our other esteemed attendees. So, without any further ado, Malati, we'd love to take your rightful place among our humble Vyasa. We're eager to hear from you. Will you be singing Jai Radha Madhava this evening, or would you like? Okay. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jannavala Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jannavala Girivaradhari Yashoda Nandana Brajana Nandana Yashoda Nandana Brajana Rajana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jannavala Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jannavala Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajanarandana Yashodanandana Prajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Rama Kunja Bihari Jaya Rama Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Chandravalabha Girivaradhari Jai Gopi Chandravalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajanarandana Yashodanandana Prajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Rama Kunja Bihari Jaya Rama Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Chandravalabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Chandravalabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Prajanarandana Yashodanandana Prajanarandana Yamunatira Vanachari Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Rama Kunja Bihari Jaya Rama Kunja Bihari Jaya Rama Kunja Bihari Prabhupada ki Gaura Premanandi
Jayam Shri Sripad Paramahans Paravajakacharya Satara, His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Prabhupada ki jai. ISKCON BBT founder Acharyas, Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Ananta Koti, Vaishnavrinda ki jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki jai. Primsiko Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda, Sri Advaita Sri Gadadhar Sivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda ki jai. Sri Sri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamasundar Radha Giri Govardhan ki jai. Shrimati Tulsi Devi Bhakti Devi Vrindamai ki jai. Gunga Yamuna Saraswati ki jai. Mayapur ISKCON will give the world so many valuable jewels. He said there's no comparison. I'm sitting here and I'm looking at all of you, and yes, you are some of the valuable jewels, all of you. And we're sitting here in this city of Cleveland, or one of its suburbs. I'm thinking, what is the population here? Does anybody have any clue?
In Cuyahoga, where I'm from, Cuyahoga.
Well, whatever the population is, we're just a little handful. You know, it's like when you have a big pile of rocks, you're doing construction, you make a big pile of rocks, and you take out one little rock, you don't even notice the difference, you know? So we're like some little pebbles here in this Cleveland area, and we got to grow our pile. You know? We really need to do that, you know? There was a letter that Srila Prabhupada, so this is in no particular order, sorry about that, but Srila Prabhupada wrote this letter to Hayagriva, and it was in 1972, and it was an unpublished letter. I think now they might have it in there, but unpublished letter. And for those of you who might not know, Hayagriva was one of the early devotees, among the first pioneers of the Krishna consciousness movement. And he was a professor at OSU, Ohio State University, English professor. Very colorful personality, I'll just leave it at that. And but he did service for Srila Prabhupada, including early, big bad word here, editing. But editing is not always what's now kind of plagues our mind. It, you know, it can be simple things like just making sure the spelling is correct or the grammar is correct, etc. You know. So he was doing this at Srila Prabhupada's request, and then Srila Prabhupada wrote a letter. So he's editing, Shamsundar was typing. So here's this letter from Prabhupada. I'm now translating nightly, and each day Shamsundar types the tape. And Prajumna, so another editor, Prajumna, he's editing Sanskrit. Prabhupada used to call him Panditji. So Shamsundar's typing, Prajumna's editing. So we shall be sending more and more material because you say that you can edit any amount, and this is to Hayagriva, we can edit any amount that you can supply. And Prabhupada said, so I take this as a challenge, and I'll try to see if you can keep up with me. Yes, you are correct to say that it is all nectar. So everything in relationship with Krishna or Lord Chaitanya is all nectarine, and our literature in our line of Vaishnava acharyas is so nice that there is no comparison anywhere in the world for it. So I want that my disciples like you and others, and so when you hear something like this, it's for you too. I want my disciples like you and others should take this task very seriously and give the world access to this great Vaishnava literature by producing innumerable books and small booklets, and that the force of literary influence will change everything and save the people from their miserable condition and corrupt status of life. This was like March of 72. And there was never a day or a moment Srila Prabhupada was not thinking broad vision, how to save the world and each and every living entity in the world, not just the human living entity. He was concerned about even the trees. And Juhu, this is why I did keep notes. I'm already off track here, but it doesn't matter. But in Juhu, when we first got that place, it was Prabhupada knew the exact number of palm trees. I can't remember it right now, but he knew every single tree on that property. And it wasn't such a developed area at the time. Literally, it was a jungle. And they were starting to do some development, and there was a tree right outside the temple compound. And Prabhupada found out that the municipality was going to cut down that tree. And he stood up for that tree. And as a result, that tree is still standing in the middle of the road today. Yes, you have to go around that tree because that tree is a living entity as much as you and I are. And you see that quite often in villages or smaller cities in India. In Jaipur, there's quite a few trees in here and there in the center of roads, and usually there's some little shrine with the tree encapsulated within the tree. But the trees are honored and should be protected. It says in the Bhagavatam, the trees should also be protected. They're living entities. Srila Prabhupada showered more mercy and compassion on misguided living entities than they themselves or we ourselves could ever fathom, you know. And he had that mood of spiritual competition. So we shall see, we shall see. You say you can edit any amount that we supply. I take that as a challenge. We also try to see if you can keep up with me. But for what? To get this literature out, these little gems. And he was saying, you are correct to say it is all nectar. So Srila Bhakti Siddhanta he had a series of books. I can't think of the exact one, but you'll probably recognize this. The Attitude of the Karmis. So now, nowadays everybody's so uber careful about what they say and how they say it. And so to the point where you can't even say what's what because somebody might be offended. Isn't it? What does Bhakti Siddhanta say about that? He said the attitude of the karmis is always it's always one of giving up the conclusion of the pure Vaishnava understanding. And because the karmis are attracted very much to the world and the activities of the world, they always try to establish atheistic principles that are opposite to the understanding of the Vaishnavas. In other words, they support our points of view. And therefore, he says, it is the duty of authentic Vaishnavas to disregard such distractions while carrying on Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. In doing so, without doubt, we will disturb the influence of Maya, which is necessary for success. In other words, if we're just so, we don't want to disturb anybody, and, like there are people who won't even chant Hare Krishna because it might offend somebody, so they say instead the divine one or this or that or the other. We have to disturb the influence because this influence is coming from Maya, and these people are misguided. They don't have, and they haven't been given the pure gift of Krishna consciousness. So Srila Prabhupada conveyed the absolute truth in a non-compromising manner. And he handed it over to his disciples with great trust and hope that we would continue the lineage and deliver the unadulterated message of love of God. The Vedic principles are established by Dharma to keep us on the path of transcendence. In other words, if we don't discuss how things are and how, we can talk about anything in any old way, and then you don't even have a path anymore. You're just going through the forest. So we're duty bound to act with spiritual integrity if we wish to achieve the benefit of Bhakti Yoga and spread the holy name. There's no other process in this age. This is probably one of the first things you heard in the record that Srila Prabhupada first made, the first LP is playing. There's no other process that is as effective in this age as chanting Hare Krishna. Yet Maya is so bewildering that she can distract the minds of a practitioner, can distract our minds towards insignificant, useless practices and other forms and belief systems, testing our strength and determination to remain committed to our faith, our vows, our loyalty, and our practices. Compromises loom large on the horizon, and they are dressed often in very attractive roles, pretending to support bhakti, yet intent on its destruction. Such things are going on. And Prabhupada could understand these things way back. You know. So he wanted devotees to write. He wanted the books to be printed, to be published, to be printed, to be distributed. And he was describing that the secret in a devotee's writing is that when he writes about the pastimes of the Lord helps him. He doesn't write alone. There was an incident when Prabhupada was discussing with two of his senior disciples, and he brings up a verse, and he goes, "What is that verse?" He knew what it was, so a little test of the disciples. And they all look at each other. There was two of them looking at each other. And so he could understand they actually didn't know the verse. And he's pointing this out. It's really important that we not only read the books, but we study them so that we know them completely. Therefore, we can, with confidence, approach people and convince them of the potency of Krishna consciousness. In fact, what he said clearly was just like the lawyer, he learns the law book chapter and verse so that he can defeat his opponents. The first defeat isn't like knock them down, smash them. No, defeat their illusion. It's a healthy defeat. Just like Srila Prabhupada was explaining how the first time he met Srila Bhaktisiddhanta, so we all know, I think everybody here has some familiarity. His friend was saying, "I want to take you to meet this sadhu," and Srila Prabhupada was, 22 years old, not interested. Through his life, his father had brought sadhus, saintly people into the home, and even in his youth and childhood, he could see these people were not always what they were presenting themselves as. So he wasn't too impressed to meet another so-called saintly person, but his friend was determined. I think we've all had incidents when our friends wanted to do something we weren't inclined to do, but they were so determined, and because they're our friends, okay, So that's what happened. And he gets there, he's making obeisances, which is the normal culture and etiquette. And it doesn't even get his head off the ground. So you're educated young men, you should take this message of, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and preach to the English-speaking world. In other words, to go take it to the West. And Sri Prabhupada at that time was a follower of Gandhi, who had spearpointed the non-violent process of protesting to liberate India from under the thumb of the British Empire. So he's bringing, who's going to listen to us? At that time, we're subjugated. Who's going to listen to us, We're not our own people. We're not. And Bhaktisiddhanta just like very clearly and precisely explained how spiritual knowledge is not itself subjugated to anything material or mundane. So Srila Prabhupada had himself been like kind of seen as, it wasn't like there was an election, okay, there's a group of friends and you're our leader, but he was taken that way. If there was a debate, he would always win because he was very erudite. And so Prabhupada was telling us about that incident. And he said, for the first time in my life, I was defeated. And I liked it very much because he was defeated by pure knowledge, by transcendental knowledge, by a pure devotee. I liked it very much. So Prabhupada wanted his disciples to also be able to defeat pure knowledge, transcendental knowledge. And Prabhupada exhibited great gratitude. It's another Vaishnava quality. He mentioned, I'm so much indebted to you, nice boys and girls. He always referred to us like that because we were so much younger than him. I mean, some of the early disciples, they were 14, 15, 16 years old. And even the older ones, just like in our 20s, I was 21, just past. I remember when one god sister, she came in the temple, she was 35, and we're all looking like, what does this old lady want? And I said, I'm so much indebted to you, nice boys and girls, who are helping me in this mission. And I'll always pray to Krishna for your advancement. Whatever I have been able to do all over this world, it has been due to the help of all of you, my disciples. All what you have given. And then he clarified how this was possible. Unless there's loving feeling, how is it possible for you to always make offerings to me? The spiritual master is always instructing the disciples, and they in turn are trying to serve the spiritual master. It's a reciprocal relationship of love. So we just had a wonderful visit by, some people call him with great affection, the Mad Hatter Swami. You know, in New Vrindavan, Mahavishnu Swami. And he was remembering these early days because we were also, he's from Britain, and I was, of course, part of the British Yatra. So we had some early connections. But the thing that stands out in our minds above everything is the love that Srila Prabhupada emanated and gave to everyone in such a way that it was like another dimension we'd never experienced of love. But even love of our parents was something different. This was something above even that. And generally, the love of the parents is what most people would figure to be the most extraordinary in this world, the most powerful. And yet we were from Srila Prabhupada that he was loving us to such a degree that we found ourselves helplessly in falling in love with him. And that love was exhibited through service. You know. Prabhupada explained that one can start our journey back home, back to Godhead on earth, by developing an attraction for serving the servant of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. We simply have to carry the message of Krishna and try to convince people that you are, like when you do this, then you get recognized by Krishna. And recognition means you become the dearest servant of Krishna. That Krishna is your dearmost friend, and he accepts you as his friend. You know. So Prabhupada didn't come here and try to bewilder us by some kind of mental gymnastics. One time somebody was discussing, not so much discussing, it was maybe like a mild challenge, well, I see you people are, you flew here, and somebody said, meaning to San Francisco, because we know he took the ship to America. And Prabhupada said, yes, I have come by aeroplane, not to see your country, I've come for Krishna's business. The book by Vaisheshika, Family Business. Of course, he's reading the book distribution, but that's all part of our family business to push on Krishna consciousness. So Prabhupada explained that Krishna consciousness means we should always be satisfied and happy, not that we must work something impossible, like over endeavor, becoming overburdened, and then we are unhappy because so much trouble, and then we lose enthusiasm altogether. We give up hope. So Prabhupada said, no. If too much endeavor is there, it should be avoided. So that doesn't mean, oh, I don't have to do anything. But, over endeavor means beyond your capacity. Endeavor for something that you're not maybe ready to capture. Make sure your shoes fit. You can buy them a couple sizes larger, and then you can comfortably grow into them. Get them too big, you stumble, you fall, you get discouraged. Prabhupada explained how by all means we must preserve our spiritual status. That's the point, he said. Not that we become mad after big buildings, many devotees, life members, this, that. No, these are only ways to engage the devotees so they may apply the principles of devotional living to some kind of work for practical realization of these principles. So, if only one person daily, if we can sincerely speak to, preach to just one person daily, that's sufficient, he said. Never mind big programs. Then you'll think, wait a minute, didn't he have some big programs? Yeah, he did. But it wasn't the ever-present goal. Just like, how many here in the room were recently in Orlando, Florida? Yeah, that was a pretty big program. And I'm sure the endeavor broke a few backs, but it didn't break hearts and it didn't make anybody walk out the door because it was clearly being done for the pleasure of Guru and Krishna and the devotees. And I think anyone who went there was extremely satisfied. At the same time, Prabhupada is explaining devotees mean that he's able to tolerate all kinds of discomfort and whims on the material nature. And because he's so much absorbed in serving Krishna, he takes no time to become angry or take offense with others or find some fault. Anybody here never found any fault with anybody? We can sit on our hands. We hear about Raghunath Das Goswami, and he never criticized. It just wasn't in his bones. Maha Mega Bhagavat. But no, devotee means very liberal and kind to everyone. Always gentlemen under all kinds of conditions of life. Devotee is sympathetic. Like a devotee will look and see some little quality, and even the person that he is like the most critical of, he can switch his gears mentally and he can find some little quality that he can highlight, some little spark he can fan. You know, if I say Shika and he has that little thing, fan the spark, because that's what Prabhupada did for us. Some little spark, you know. Even we didn't realize at the time what was happening to us, you know. And then suddenly we're just full on going for it, you know. Getting on a plane, going to a foreign country with a one-way ticket and a 6-week-old baby, and not even knowing anybody where you're landing. You know, what kind of people do that? People that have allowed their spiritual spark to be fanned by the spiritual master. Prabhupada explained that factually, the spiritually developed person is able to have television of the kingdom of God always reflected within the heart. So that is the mystery of knowledge to the personality of Godhead. The television of the kingdom of God. So this is purport 2935. And so when God's sister, who was coming very reluctantly, her husband was not so reluctant. She was reluctant. She decided, I'm never going to say Hare Krishna. She didn't tell anybody without, you know, so she would never say it. But then one time in a conversation, she asked, have you ever seen Krishna? Prabhupada said, yes. And she was, you have? Every moment. And on that day, her husband was to drive Srila Prabhupada to the airport. And so they're exiting the room. They're all having this darshan, and she's standing by the door. And when Prabhupada came out for the first time, she said, Hare Krishna. So Krishna has given some opportunity to serve him. Nice writing, some good business ability, nice cooking, and so on. But these various services are all accepted equally by Krishna. And sometimes, you know, this is the topmost. I'm the biggest book distributor. I'm the head pujari. I'm the temple president. I'm the GBC. I'm the whatever. These services, whatever they are, I'm the bathroom cleaner. I scrub the floor. I wash the dishes. All of these services are accepted equally by Krishna because Prabhupada explained on a transcendental level, one service is as good as the other. There's no question of higher or lower. We are also very tiny, so we really can't do very much. Simply we engage our time and our energy, and that is all Krishna sees. So if you have the capacity to do more, you do more. But it's not seen as more by Krishna, and it sees this person is utilizing his energy, his ability, and that's what he's seeing. From, you know, and then he said, you know, he sees this boy and this girl spending time in my service, and he's pleased. So we also have to see that as what's happening. And sometimes we feel like, can't they just do a little more? Especially if you're like in admin, can't they just do a little more, you know? You know, sometimes we need to get a new pair of glasses, not the physical one, not the Costco ones, you know, I'm a Costco person, but you know, the internal one, the vision. Like, yes, they can do a little more, but turn it back. Can you do a little more? You know, and sometimes it's like, no, I can't. Well, then neither can they. You know, sometimes we just have to accept we're at the limit. But then find out, how can I fan their spark? Be like Prabhupada, you know. Prabhupada said that this Vaishnava philosophy is very accurate. He said, therefore, the life of a Vaishnava begins with the big S word, surrender, not challenge. You know, how many few people are excited to surrender when they hear this? You have to surrender. Like, what does this mean? You know? So this lady asked Prabhupada, what does it mean practically to surrender to Krishna? Prabhupada said, yes. Surrender to Krishna means you have to accept things which is favorable to Krishna consciousness. Just like we restrict our students, no illicit sex, no gambling, no meat eating, no intoxication. If you surrender to this process, that is surrender to Krishna. You know, is that clear? And he goes, if you don't surrender, there's no surrender. Then you're not able to surrender. Then you're not a surrendered soul. So chant 16 rounds, and if you follow, that is surrendering to Krishna. Don't take anything except Krishna Prasad. That is surrendering to Krishna. You know. So if you surrender to these principles, that means you are surrendering to Krishna. Then he gives an example, like the good citizen. He surrenders to the state. And what does that mean? He abides by the laws. That's all. He doesn't do anything that's against the law of the state. And that's all. So you surrender to the principle, then you surrender to Krishna, and that's all. So he makes it very logical, easy to understand. You know. But of course, we have our free will, we have our capacity. Okay, I get it, but I'm not ready for that yet. And then we wonder, why isn't this working? You know. It was a very nice letter, again, on the terms of Prabhupada's fanning our sparks, his appreciation of his disciples. So there was an article that was written by Her Grace Bashaka Devi Dasi, and if anybody are familiar with her writings, so many books, Temple President of Bhaktivedanta Manor, by the way, her beautiful, practically, I mean, I don't know the percentage, but it's a pretty large percentage of photographs were taken by her and her husband. So she made this article, Prabhupada, India's national hero. And he wrote back, I'm very grateful to you for your kind words about me, but I don't think that I've done anything. I'm only delivering the best message as it is. Actually, anyone who is a sincere devotee of Krishna and who's rendering service by preaching his message is considered to be a hero. So then he continued, so all of you are heroes in your country and your humanity. So here we are, a room full of Cleveland heroes, but we need to expand it. No. Hero means someone who others want to follow. I won't make a comment. So Prabhupada explained, the hero means someone who others want to follow as an example of the best type of person. So then he said, so you all become like that. So I'm passing the message on. So will you all become like that? Perfect examples of Krishna consciousness, heroes and heroines. And preach the message exactly I have taught to you very seriously, being fully convinced. Being fully convinced. Because how can I convince someone if I'm not convinced? Maybe you can superficially, but people can get it. They'll pick up on it. He said, so fully convinced, and then others will automatically come forward and join us. And we shall just be like one great army of heroes for Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So that is our mission. We want to become heroes for Mahaprabhu. We want to be part of his army. We are, but sometimes we take little leaves of absence. I mean, it's necessary on some degrees. Sometimes we have to take a break to just not a break from practicing Krishna consciousness. That's not what I mean. But you have to stand back a bit and reflect what you're doing, how you're doing it, how it's going on. You have to do that. Sometimes if Krishna takes care of you, so he's telling that this is, this is like 1966 New York. So we don't have, our centers. It's like 26 Second Avenue. It's there. So sometimes if Krishna takes special care of you, he'll do things in such a way you'll have no other way than to go back. He'll take charge. If you sincerely want to see Krishna, if he sees that here's a person, he wants me, but a little foolish, he wants me, but at the same time, he wants to enjoy this material world, then he crushed this, crushed that. He'll crush material propensities and allow us to become simply devoted to him. Imagine you saying this in 66 to a room full of people that just, that's what I mean. He was not artificial. He wasn't a cheater. He wasn't trying to bewilder us. He was trying to help us. He's trying, hey, you struggle, you're feeling, please, here, let me take you out of that. Interestingly enough, he mentioned there's actually no material advancement in the USA. Material advancement means there's ample opportunity for eating, sleeping, mating, defending. And superficially, it appears that in the USA there is sufficient provision of eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. It appears that way, he said, superficially. But actually, nobody is safe, even in his own apartment. So Prabhupada's writing that, and then he explains, I have got practical experience in New York. Several times my typewriter and tape recorders were stolen, and the police could not take any action. The Prabhupada said, that's it, I'm done, I'm out of here. No, he didn't. So there were many persons in the Bowery Street that had no shelter to live. So if a certain fraction of the people are supposed to be materially happy at the cost of others, that is not material advancement. No. Had it been so, then why are there so many persons confused and frustrated? Actually, there is no material advancement here. 1966, he's putting this out there. You can call it capitalist advancement, and the reaction to such advancement is communism, anyism, and such movement is simply suppressed in your country. But actually, the reaction is this. So the Western type of civilization, industrialism, capitalism, etc., there's no material advancement. It is simply material exploitation. When one gets like the bare necessities of life, a peaceful home, you have a home, sumptuous eating. That's one thing as members of the Hare Krishna movement we don't have a problem with. Sumptuous eating, necessary sex life, feeling of security, then it's called material advancement. And when there's an absence of the four preliminary necessities of life, it's not material advancement. He's saying, just try to understand this. According to Vedic civilization, a man is supposed to be rich when he has sufficient grains, cows. Here we have neither sufficient grains or cows, but you have got sufficient quantity of paper only, talking about the money, pieces of paper, falsely thinking that this is money. And when there's some catastrophe, this bunch of paper will not supply milk or grain. This will be seen only, and the man will starve. So he's giving insight for us to how to understand things. No, I was like, so our process is to show Krishna consciousness as it is, not as others want to see it. By showing Krishna consciousness in this way, making the thing less important, and otherwise compromise Krishna consciousness as it is. You're making the other thing, making it like less important. It's not that we should change to accommodate the public, but we should change the public to accommodate us. That is for their welfare. If we simply present Krishna consciousness in a serious and attractive way, without the need to resort to fashionable slogans or tricks, that is sufficient. And our unique aspect is purity. No one anywhere can match it. And that will be noticed and eventually appreciated. As long as we do not diminish or neglect the highest standard of purity in performing our routine work, not that we require to display or announce ourselves in a clever way to get some attention. Oh, our pure standard is enough. Let us stand on that. This was mentioned to, how many of you know Yogeshwara, one of the early? So this was in a letter to Yogeshwara, 71. Actually, Prabhupada said there are basically six types of comes back to this fanning the spark. There are basically six types of human beings. Those who only see the bad in someone else, those who see both good and bad, but choose bad, and those who see a little bad in someone but choose to make it very big. Those are three types. And then there are those they see both the good and bad, but they choose the good. And then there are those they only see the good. And then there are the devotees who have a little bit of good in somebody, they see it, but they choose to make it very big. They found that spark. You know. So as we go on chanting Hare Krishna in the pure status, we will be on the loving platform. And at that time, we will feel the greatest separation from Krishna. But that feeling of separation from the Lord is more relishable than meeting the Lord. And we're hearing this, but like, what does that mean actually? You know, here's a platitude. What does it mean? This is like transcendental existential understanding, Prabhupada explained. But as we grow in Krishna consciousness, we understand everything gradually by the grace of Krishna. He reveals himself to the devotee with the progress, as we progress in our Krishna consciousness. So just a few, Prabhupada wrote this letter to one other person who was part of his life. Also, he was there during many important parts of his life. And Prabhupada was appreciating him. And Prabhupada expressed how at his first sight of me, Srila Prabhupada, meaning Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, at his first sight of me, Srila Prabhupada also saw me with such love. It was my very first darshan of Srila Prabhupada, Bhaktisiddhanta, that I learned how to love. It's his boundless mercy that he's engaged me, an unworthy person like me, in fulfilling some of his desires. It is his causeless mercy to engage me in preaching the message of Rupa and Sanatan, Raghunath. It's his boundless mercy that he engaged an unworthy person like me in fulfilling some of his desires. That's the mood of Srila Prabhupada, our Srila Prabhupada. And if we can connect a little with that, appreciate that mood, then we'll also be having the opportunity of seeing everyone in such a nice way. We'll have the opportunity to successfully fan little sparks in others and help them come to the platform of Krishna consciousness. You can imagine coming here, what did he see? Such degraded human beings. And then so quickly, so he, into that same person, he was saying, here, 15 educated boys have accepted discipleship from me. They've given up wine, meat, intoxication, marijuana, tea, coffee, eggs, etc. And they're honoring Krishna prasadam given by me to them every day. You know how he was cooking for them, right? They never knew how to take rice, dal, chapati, spinach, milk, fruits. And now, by eating such prasad, they are quite happy. And they're always attentively doing their service. Therefore, when these young boys are fully ready, vast preaching will take place in these Western countries through them. I'm always reminding them that I'm old. At any time, I might have to say, Namaskar to Yamaraj. So you try to understand this Krishna consciousness philosophy yourself. How much faith he had. It was another comment he said, was expressing how much affection he felt for his American and European boys and girls. Such a high level mission, such a grand vision, saving the world. Somebody has to have it in a practical way, not through bombs, not through wars, but through love. Like in the 60s, we were searching, we wanted peace, we wanted love, and we weren't finding it. And still we were desperate for it. And then it seemed like it just wasn't going to happen. And then Krishna sent Prabhupada, the real hero for the peace and love generation. So you've taken up Prabhupada's mission, otherwise you wouldn't be here. We've got ample mridungas, but we need to expand them a bit. And we need these books, these valuable gems, to be more widely distributed anyway, and you can do it. It doesn't always have to be some grand plan. Just you speak to somebody, about Krishna. You see somebody looking like, we dress as a Vaishnava one way or the other, maybe just at the kuntimalan or tilak on, somebody sees her looking at you, oh, you're probably wondering about this, And then you tell them what it means. I've never had anybody be upset when I say, it means the body's a temple of God. No. There's always an opportunity to say some little thing to someone. Jayananda Prabhu would never go anywhere without prasadam. So, now we can't even say this, but gulab jamuns used to be considered the ISKCON bullets. Can you imagine now? Yeah, just, a jar of gulab jamun. Here's ISKCON bullets. Knocking on your door. Come with me, please. First, you have to take your bullet. Anyway, please try to become more deeply acquainted with Srila Prabhupada through his teachings. Try to understand what he meant in terms of spreading Krishna consciousness. If you have the capacity for something great and grand, do it. Otherwise, just come together and chant and invite others to join. This yatra is wonderful, The last time I tried to come up here was a few weeks ago. It was the same kind of horrible weather. And we got as far as 77, and then we got the message. We were on our way to Rath Yatra. And what happened? Rained out. But today I was really happy. It was raining like anything, but they couldn't rain us out because we had, we had a place to come to. So we drove through that rain. And we shouldn't let anything discourage us. If you feel discouraged, you have to know here's a gift from Maya. That's all. Anyway, thank you very much again for being here. And these wonderful devotees, the undercover Chicago people, they have a lot of experience in Krishna consciousness and, managing centers, big, small, whatever. So, take some opportunity to speak with them and learn a little something from them. Just consider them that they are sent by Kishore Kishori. Sent by Krishna to just, give you a little, because we all need a little hand in whatever we do. We're not in competition with anybody here, but the competition, if we have it, is like, how much more can we do? And how can we be more effective? Well, thank you very much, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.